Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second event in our series, Kickstarting Europe. And if it's not good evening to you, good morning, because I think we have some viewers online in Latin America and the United States as well, and they're just heading into their afternoon in the next few minutes or next hours. So what is Kickstarting Europe? It's a series where we bring together inspiring, visionary, innovating speakers, the people who are going to challenge us about what our countries should become in the future. And in some cases, they're already building it in their countries. So we bring together those visionary speakers, and we bring together high-level people in the room, and we have people watching online as well to have a stimulating conversation around where our continent needs to go. So the point of this session is to encourage you to be very interactive. So whether that is making comments online, sticking your hand up here in the audience, don't be shy to challenge our speakers. Don't be shy to challenge me. That's the way we're going to have a very interesting conversation over the next 45 minutes or so. If you're going to make a comment online, use the hashtag Kickstarting Europe. And at the end, we'll ask you to fill out some evaluation forms, because we're committed to improving these events, and we can only do it if you tell us what you liked and what you think we need to improve. And before we get into our debate tonight, I'm going to invite up Carlos Lopez Blanco, who's the Global Head of Regulatory and Public Affairs for Telefonica.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you, Ryan, and thank you. Let me start thanking Politico and welcoming you here to this second event on the Kickstarting Europe series that we have been organizing with Politico here in Brussels. After our first event focused on artificial intelligence, we wanted to give a different flavor to this second event and to be focused in a different perspective in two aspects. One, to be focused on the public policies needed to develop the digital space, and second, to be focused in a region, a very specific region, and that we think that deserves in Brussels more attention than normally we pay to it, which is Latin America. Let me, about the general context of Latin America and Europe in the digital space, I think that we are living in a very similar context, and this context is that, as the CEO of Telefonica normally says, we are not living in an era of changes, but in a change of era. And for Latin America and for Europe, that means to face common challenges. And I think that to understand and to see how in Latin America they are facing these digital economy challenges is important for us, because there are a lot of things happening in Latin America, in innovation, in public policy, in the digital space, and I think that all these things deserve our attention, and we know very well, because you know that in Latin America we have our biggest market, which is Brazil, and most of our customers. Let me only to mention some of the issues that we consider are essential in this analysis of the situation in Latin America and Europe in the digital space. The first and by far the most important challenge is education. So I think that education is the most critical factor in the 21st century to make the countries and the societies competitive. Entrepreneurship is essential, and how to create an environment that can permit entrepreneurship to flourish. The institutional model and the e-government, I think that Diego Molano knows a lot of how to promote. Connectivity is essential. As you can imagine, for Telefonica is one of the centers of our activity, but let me tell you that for us connectivity is much more than simply bringing physical infrastructure to remote areas. For us, connectivity means mainly two things. First, to provide people with the best technology that we can provide them. And second, to be aware that when we bring connectivity to a remote area, we are bringing something more important, which is a tool of social development. So for us, this is the value of connectivity. Privacy and security, because one of the essentials in this environment is to create trust and confidence in citizens and in the users of the digital services. One problem in which Europe and Latin America has to face a common challenge is, which is how to tackle the situation of having a few dominant players in the digital space. So I think that this is a very, very essential aspect of this discussion. And finally, the last point that I will suggest as part of this landscape will be the level playing field. So we think that level playing field, and that means mainly for us two things: consumer protection and taxes. Let me come to the end with a last comment. In the 21st century, the rich countries will not be there with raw materials or with good infrastructure. Rich countries will be those that has been able to understand and to develop the digital economy. And this is the challenge and the opportunity. I think that for Latin America, the digital economy is a huge opportunity, and to be one of the regions, of the winner regions in the 21st century. And for trying to discuss this, we have two persons that know very, very well this situation and the challenges of digitalization in Latin America, coming from two different countries, coming from two different origins in his experience in the public and private sector. And I think that they will be the one giving us light and insights in this discussion. Thank you. Wow.
Australia, Chile, and Colombia. So on that basis, Diego kindly allowed us to go in alphabetical order. So you've got me as an Australian who did the introduction. And then we will come next to Palau Covarrubias, who is from the País Digital Foundation in Chile. And then after him, an opening statement from Diego Milano, the former Minister for IT and many other things. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Carlos, for that well introduction. This is a very, very important issue for Chile and for Latin America. And the thing is, I try to bring you what we are talking about, the citizens, what we are talking about not in Chile, that especially we have elections in 2 weeks more, so it's very, very important. And what happened with the digital economy in general. The first issue is digital economy changed everything. First, change the structure of the companies. That is very interesting how the companies, they're beginning to adapt digital economy. They are changing their structure, their internal organization. Second, they change the market. They are changing how the market function. Second, they are changing the labor relationship between inside of the company and between the companies, the salaries, and the skills that the labor forces need to get into the new digital economy. Third, they're changing the way of payment, how people consume the services, the suppliers. So, as we see, change everything. And of course, change regulation and fiscalization. At the end, when you change the company, when you change the structure, when you change the different skills that you need, you will need to change the fiscalization and the regulation. But despite all of that, the most important thing for us is that Chile and Latin America can't get out of this digital revolution. In the last, Diego talked a little bit about it in the lunch. In the first industrial revolution, South America kept out of the revolution, and we have 200 years of solely poor people and poor middle countries in Latin America. Now we can get out of this digital revolution. So the most important thing is how to embrace the digital revolution, and that I will try to show you what we are doing over there. 16 years ago, we launched Fundación País Digital, which is a private foundation or private companies to work with the state. Why? Because nobody in the state was thinking in get into the digital revolution. The state usually are thinking in their relative and usual problem, not in the future problems. So our idea in this foundation was how to tackle these issues into the government, and what we need for that. After 16 years working in País Digital, I am the chairman in the last 7 years, we invite the 3 most important presidential candidates 2 months ago to talk about the digital issues. What are the most important digital issues now? First, the digital agenda, which will be your digital agenda for the country. Second, the digital infrastructure, how Chile would enhance their infrastructure. Now we are leading in Latin America in this infrastructure, but we are the last of the OECD countries. So we have this leading in South America, but we are the last among all of the OECD countries. That is too bad for Chile. Third, about data privacy. 4, about regulation, what is the most important regulation for the next sector, the sector is 21. And finally, and very important thing, the level playing field, how we got a rule for the different digital platforms in Chile. So, but the most important issues weren't digital agenda or infrastructure or privacy data, was education for the future and labor changes. The most important thing is what happened with the labor force in the future. That is very important because we are feeling and seeing the change in the company, the change in the structure of the company, the change of the skills. So the people now is afraid about these changes. So the most important discussion was in education and labor changes. And in labor, specifically in productivity, how we can enhance the productivity of our workers in Chile. In the last decade in Chile, the productivity go down 0.53%. In the United States, for instance, like we like to compare a lot with the United States or with Asian people, more than Europe, we have to take care about that. The United States go up 1.8 in productivity. In Chile, down 0.5. So we need entrepreneurship state. We need a state who have a vision of digital agenda, who have a vision of innovation, who have a vision of entrepreneurial people. And what is the people now, the normal citizen talk about in Chile? They are talking about different things. First, pension system. Most important, talking about pension. Second, security. Third, labor opportunities. So if you see what the people is talking, the first 3 issues about the last polls, the people are talking about what they care about now. But when you talk with the people and say, okay, despite that, what is the most important thing that you are seeing changes? People now are talking GAFAs, not GAFAs, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Samsung. We call GAFAs. So the people all the day use GAFAs to work every day, use GAFAs to interchange commerce and productivity. People now are talking about energy. They're talking about solar power. They are talking about renewable energies. Energies in Chile is coming down, the prices, it's amazing. In the last decade, we have like a $50 per kilowatt the energy. Now we're having $10 per kilobit the energy. So in the future, in the 2022, 2023, we will have a huge change of the power structure in Chile. So people are afraid of this change of era, Carlos. They're thinking how I can get into this change of era without getting out of this. So the País Digital Foundation lead the transformation of culture, lead the issues, this issue in the system. So we talk with the newspaper, we talk about TV, we talk with companies, with all the companies, not just infrastructure companies, about all digital companies. So we are having a country experience where we are trying to adopt the digital economy. How? We have to talk about tax reform. For instance, the service of tax in Chile, the last month, finished the 100% digital invoices with the middle companies and big companies. So every company in Chile now have a digital invoice. That is a huge change in the tax system in Chile, because now, for instance, accounting people don't have to work in the issues that they work in the past. Now the services taxes, they give you the entire tax reform with the data that the tax reform services have. Services in the government. We are pushing the government, the state, to have 100% of the services digital. Today we have 60% of the service digital. So we are working with each minister in how to change that system, that service that today is not digital, into digital. And we put a goal that we have to take 100% of the services in the state in 2020 digital. Sir, in Chile we have 3.4% of the PIB in technology and information industry. We have to go to the middle of the OECD, which is 6%. So we are working in all of the companies in the different areas in embrace this digital adoption, this digital transformation. And we're working with them in 3 issues, different. First, education, change of culture of their people. Second, given the possibility from the state to give funding, money to them can buy or bring the digital opportunities that the world have today. And for instance, in the middle companies, middle average companies, we create a system that is called companies in one day. So you can open a new company in one day, all digital. That's changed the mentality of the entrepreneurs and the opportunities for the innovating people. Finally, we are trying to look a vision among different countries or different continents. We go a lot to USA, America, North America. We got a lot to Asia. We are looking Japan and Korea. And third, we are coming to Europe. So for that, it's very important to have this meeting today here, because we are very willing to learn about Europe. And you are having very good discussion too, also in regulation. But with South America, you are not having at least discussion that you have. 10 years ago, we talked about digital TV, for instance. The regulation in digital, you remember the standard of digital TV? But 10 years ago, we need to talk about digital economy now. What about the regulation? What about the platform? What about the taxes? So it's very important for us, because in the new era, we need these social new values. And with you, we can talk about this social value that we need. So we need to innovate in the country to create an entrepreneurship system, a system who can believe in the innovator and in the digital economy and embrace this digital economy like a country. So give us the opportunity to don't get out of the fourth revolution that we kept out of the first revolution in the last century. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sounds like Chile is on its way to being the next Estonia. What has Colombia got for us, Diego?
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Politico, for the invitation today. Quite nice format. I love it. So I hope you're gonna have beer later.
A long way.
Right,
Very
yeah.
grateful that you're here.
So let me tell you guys about the Colombian story, the digital transformation of Colombia. It started in 2010 when President Juan Manuel Santos took office. And so he said, we want to transform the country with technology. But then we asked many people what the right policies should be implemented in the country. We couldn't find answers. Because people studied policies in developed countries, but not for developing countries. So we opened up a discussion on the net with social networks. In those days, social networks were not very strong, but 5,000 people joined. And we discussed with those people the policies, the challenges we had in terms of infrastructure. Very poor internet penetration in those days, very poor international connectivity as well, lack of technology in many, many sectors. And the main question that people discussed on the net was, what is the vision? What is what Colombia wants to be in the long run?
And many people said, oh, Colombia has to be the Silicon Valley of Latin America. Colombia has to be the innovation nation of the region. But then we were assessing the different possibilities with President Santos and the whole cabinet. And we drew the conclusion that, no, we cannot be Silicon Valley. We cannot be the innovation nation. But we have to use technology to solve the Colombian problems. And the single most important problem of Colombia in those days, and it is still today this main problem, is poverty. In those days, in 2010, almost around 48% of Colombians, 48, were under the poverty line. And the political program of President Santos the main focus was fighting poverty. So what we did was fighting poverty with technology. So what we did was creating programs for every single sector, for every single ministry, using technology to fight poverty. So the Ministry of Health, created a whole program to transform the health industry. The Ministry of Finance, we transformed the regulations that actually, one of the challenges we had to fight poverty was banking penetration. Just 35% of Colombians with bank accounts. Now, almost 75%. Why? Thanks to a fintech law that it is opening opportunities for new business models for non-banks, for non-banks. So even with the famous guy here in Brussels, Rodrigo Rivera, who was ambassador here for quite a few years, he was the Minister of Defense. And he presented, the day we presented the plan to the whole country, he presented a plan to use technology for defense and security. Every single ministry had their own plan, and the Ministry of Information and Communications Technology that I led played a very important role as a consultant of the rest of the ministries. But I think we were successful because the credits, the victories of this plan were not a victory of the Information and Communication Technology Ministry. It was the victory of each of the ministries. So we were just internal consultants. And we expanded technology everywhere, everywhere. We even connected rural areas, the Amazon jungle. If there are 100 people in any rural community, that community today is connected to internet. So we massified international connectivity, went from 5 international cables to 14 international cables, data centers grew up. We went from 7% of small companies connected, from SMEs connected, to 76% companies, 76% of the SMEs connected in just 3 years. How? Creating applications for them. We also connected thousands of schools and delivered computers and tablets to students in public schools. And you saw there what Carlos was saying about connectivity when he talked. This is not about technology, it's about the social impact. When you go to Colombia and see those kids in the middle of the jungle, having access to internet, and of course with the right methodology to use it, I mean, those kids have the same opportunity as any rich kid that lives in Bogota, in Medellin, here in Brussels, in Madrid, or Washington, D.C., to have access to the whole information society. That closes gaps, and that's the idea, using technology to close gaps. The success factors of this plan, first of all, leadership. A clear leadership on this, leadership of the president and also the private industry. Secondly, we are in Brussels. Politics is every day here. If there is no impact in voting, what do politicians want? Votes. So we have to create the impact in terms of voting, and President Santos was reelected. Because if you don't really create the votes, you don't have the Congress or the governors or the mayors playing this game because they are not interested. The third key success factor was public-private partnerships. Everything we've done is through PPPs. That's key. And another key success factor is having the right culture within the government, having the right public servants also designing and developing this plan. So I just wanted to share this, and many European companies are involved in this. You know, companies, of course, in the telecom side, but also in the software side, were very, very involved in the transformation of Colombia.
Thank you so much, Diego. I'll ask a few questions from up here first before involving everybody in the discussion. What I was hearing from both of you, well, things that really jumped out as common across both of you, was collaboration, maybe different forms of collaboration, but collaboration is absolutely essential. You adapted the types of collaboration to your local needs, and you really were binding in social impact. So it wasn't just about the tech, it wasn't just about the money you can make from tech, there was a real social impact side to what you're talking about. And maybe as a way to now link it back into the European experiences, one thing I also know is that Chile and Colombia are both also middle-income countries, and we have quite a few of them here in the European Union as well. Is there anything about sort of your status in that income range that you think is relevant to those countries here in Europe who share the same potential, but still needing to reach that potential?
You guys know if you want.
You know, there is no answer, because there are many other factors. It is not just the level of income, the size of the markets are key. And you see, for example, in terms of entrepreneurship, which is one of the elements of the digital transformation, when we started, we had, what we initially did was copying Silicon Valley, and that didn't work. That didn't work. Why? Because we realized that the entrepreneurial spirit of Latin Americans is completely different than the Americans. And we also saw the opportunity of developing applications for the base of the pyramid of the world. Because, you know, we all envy Silicon Valley. Those guys are very innovative. There is a lot of money there, a lot of talent. They attract talent from all over the world. And they expand everywhere. But, you know, and I work with some of them, and I go to California quite often. But you know what? Those guys have no clue what a poor person is. So their solutions are useless for poor people. And that's an opportunity that we are seizing, which is developing solutions for the base of the pyramid.
It's still an opportunity to make money as well.
Huge. It is
not
huge.
Just for
4
charity.
billion people in the base of the pyramid are going to be connected to internet as they are today connected to mobile phones, thanks to telecom operators. But, and then we also see, for example, Argentina. Argentina is a huge market, and despite a very, very aggressive government in terms of friendship, policies towards the private sector, they created 4 unicorns in Argentina with high taxes, with a lot of, you know, technology barriers.
What was the success factor? What enabled that despite all of the heavy intervention?
That entrepreneurial spirit of Latin Americans.
Do you agree with that, Palau?
Yeah, I want to add some things. First, for us, it's very, very important have very clear rules. When you're talking about middle income and countries, you need to have very, very clear rules to think in the future. So in Argentina, those people, sometimes they also in this environment of not some real clear rules, they try to do something. And the digital economy gives them the opportunity to do something. That is very important, because if they get into a business, a typical business, they will have success. But digital economy is giving us the opportunity to have success in different business. So clear rules for digital economy, that is very, very important. For instance, in Chile, if you create a digital platform that is created into Chile, you have to pay taxes for give a service in Chile. But
and that's
if
a special tax targeted at
that
digital,
is the normal tax of a
tax?
company in Chile.
Okay.
But if you create the same company in Colombia and give the service from Colombia, you don't pay taxes. So what are all the entrepreneurs in Chile are doing? Going outside of Chile to give services in Chile. So it's very important when we talk about digital economy, how are the rules in the market So you can push and enhance the entrepreneurship capacity. That is one very important point. Second, that maybe we face different stages with Diego in the country situation. Chile is a most developed country in some issues. In the 80s, our main problem was poverty. Now in Chile we have 5% of poverty. So our main problem now is to take Chile to the digital world. That is our main issue.
Which brings us to exports. What can we do between Latin America and Europe on the export front? You talked about fintech revolution. Palau, maybe keep going, but tell us a bit about what we can do with exports.
It's everything. The point of digital economy, now we have connectivity. Because we have connectivity, most of the people in Chile ask every day about decentralization. They say, hey, Santiago, because it's the main capital, everything occurs in Santiago. With digital economy now, that is false. Digital economy, you can be in a very little town or big town and you have success in trading companies because you have the connectivity. So the opportunity now is culture and education. It's how to change the culture of the people that now they can exchange a huge business with people from Chile or from a little country or little town.
And it's a bit of an old instrument, but to both of you, would an EU-Mercosur trade deal help on that front? You know, technology unlocks opportunities.
I think for this new economy, I mean, Brussels, I mean, Europe, you guys have to work on improving the trade deals, which is happening now with the US. Now you see what it is happening in NAFTA, and you see the detailed agreements being negotiated now. They are even way above the TPP. And Europe needs to move faster in terms of creating a new wave of digital trade agreements with the whole world, but especially with Latin America. And the opportunity here is also to create economies of scale. Look, what is the standard that we use in Latin America and the whole world uses? GSM. That's a European standard. Why we are not using European standards for e-government, for health records, for electronic invoice that you mentioned? So we have a huge opportunity to move to the next level, you know, improving the relationship between Europe and Latin America.
And take the experience of Politico. You are doing very good here. You are having a little small, important, very important group, but you are transmitting this through Facebook to thousands of people. No, but that is very important because it's a way of do things different. And most of the people, this is a culture change. Sometimes you, in the European Commission, for instance, have your own sessions. Why not open this session to Latin America through Facebook? Maybe you can begin to transform the relationship through the technologies, but there are some things that we are not looking.
Okay, I think it's now about time to bring in the audience. So we are going to say goodbye to our online audience. Thank you for everyone for watching online. And then we're going to open up the discussion to be a little bit more freewheeling here in the room. So thanks everyone for watching online.